Hello. Hi, everyone. Welcome to Conversations About Color. My name is Dr. Uzma Sayed. I'm an infectious disease physician, and I'm so excited to welcome you back to all our previous viewers and welcome all of the new viewers with us joining us today. Thank you so much for being here. Please give us a hello, a wave, and put any of your comments in the comment box and questions we have today that I'm going to be asking Dr. Jen. Hello.
Hi, how are you?
How are you? Thank you
I'm,
so much for being here, Dr. Jen. I'm so
oh,
excited to be having this talk with you.
it's my pleasure, and I'm sorry. I'm like fiddling with my thingamabobber.
No,
Hold on
it's
one second. I apologize. Okay, we're gonna
take
get
your
it together.
time. Take your time. You look
All
beautiful
right.
as always. Thank you so
And
much.
you do too. It's so nice to kind of meet you in person. I've been, sort of stalking your Instagram, so this is nice.
We've been virtually, connecting, but it's so nice to have this, face-to-face conversation finally.
Absolutely. Okay, I think I got it together. Okay,
Yes, you look
so
amazing. So,
hi.
Dr.
Thank
Jen,
you.
I just want to do a formal introduction for people to really hear a little bit about you and your background. And I know we have very limited time, but I want to give you this formal intro. So, Dr. Jennifer Caudle is a board-certified family medicine physician, associate professor in the Department of Family Medicine at Rowan University School of Osteopathic Medicine. She appears as a regular on-air health expert for local and national news networks, including The Today Show, The Dr. Oz Show, CNN, Fox News, Rachael Ray, Steve Harvey, PBS, and many others. Dr. Caudle is also a cellist, and as a musician, she has performed cello in orchestras and string ensembles internationally. She attended Walnut Hill School for the Arts and studied cello at the New England Conservatory of Music Preparatory School during her high school years. Dr. Caudle is a former trustee of Walnut Hill School of the Arts. In 1999, Dr. Caudle earned the title of Miss Iowa and competed in the 1999 Miss America pageant. So that's a little brief intro about you. There's so
Wow.
much more that I could say about you, but I just want to highlight that you are a woman of
Oh.
all trades. You've
You're
got
you're sweet. If I would known you were gonna read that, I would have told you in the beginning. I've been like, no, don't read. Don't tell me any of that
no,
stuff.
no, I want people to know how much you have to offer and how well-rounded you are and how beautifully you speak and how much, you are providing to not just your patients, but to America as well, because I know you have a very prominent presence, in media, and I just want to thank you for that. I think it's really important that
Thank
physicians
you.
are able to use their voices to really reach the public.
As you are, by the way, your series is amazing. Like I love the interviews that you're doing with people, and I love like the consistency. And I mean, I love the platform that you're building. So I have to say, hats off to you as well, because it's not easy. It's a lot of work, as I know you know. But
Yeah.
you're doing an amazing job, and you're holding really important conversations. So it's just mutual love. That's all it is.
Oh,
Just
I
mutual love.
love it. Thank you. Women supporting women. I love that. Thank
Yes,
you.
always, always.
So because we have very little time, I know you're super busy and I really appreciate you taking time in the middle of your day to really do this with
Sure.
me. I want to just get right into it. So,
Okay.
I heard, I mentioned to everybody about, all of your different passions, growing up. And I want to hear about your childhood and your love for music. Was it easy to be a
Oh,
performer? Were there any struggles? Did you feel like you had to be more
sure.
competitive than some of your classmates? Was there
Yeah.
any mentors that guided you, or was it just very seamless and just kind of, everything just fell into place?
Oh, honey, nothing has been seamless. That I can tell you. So, my path has been a little bit of a winding path. I was actually born and raised in Iowa, and so my background, my experiences are pretty diverse in terms of location, geography, the people I've spent my life around, etc. But yeah, music was my first love before medicine, before becoming a physician, and I did move to Boston to go to a preparatory school at New England Conservatory to study cello, where I spent my last 2 years out in Boston at Walnut Hill School
Wow.
for the Arts. That was amazing. It was tough. My
Yeah.
parents are teachers. We were in Iowa. My parents didn't have the money for boarding school. That wasn't something my family had done. It's not, I don't have doctors in my family. And I say that only because even becoming a doctor, a lot of this stuff was very new, right? And a lot of
Yep.
paths that were charted. And I like to talk about that because I think
Yep.
sometimes we can can look at other people. I can look at you. I can look at so many people and say, oh gosh, oh wow, it must be, and not really see the behind the scenes. And I think the
Yep.
behind the scenes is what inspires us. And hopefully it will inspire other people to know that, look, if it
Yep.
seems hard, if you're wondering if you're going to make it, if you're wondering if you can afford it, if it's going to work, trust me, so many of us have that. And I think that's so important to hear. So, you know, my path in music was tough. And, you know, I went out to Boston. The parents like mortgaged the house a third time or something to send me out there. I went out there on a bus. That's how little money we had. I couldn't even fly. But it was an amazing experience. And I learned so much musically. You know, coming from Iowa, I had a lot to learn. And I was behind a lot of these international students that were coming from countries, and they'd been playing since they were born. And so it was an eye-opening experience, but I always say it really shaped who I was. You know, that was a defining life experience, one in which I think really helped me also decide, you know, where I wanted to spend my life. You know, I could have been a musician in some city or town and teaching and playing in an orchestra somewhere, et cetera. But it was through going to that program and then going to college. I went to Princeton, saying, okay, well, you know, what are the options? You know, everything happens for a reason, I guess is what I'm trying to say. And for anyone out there that's like, just know that even the is actually going to serve you. You may not know how, but it's going to serve you in the end. So
absolutely. So after, you know, you had this passion for music, then you ended up in Princeton. And then, you know, when did you choose medicine? You know, how did that happen? You had certain influences in your life, you know, were there family members that were in the field? You know, how did you get to that path?
Yeah, so it was in Princeton, basically, you know, and for me, deciding to go to a 4-year college instead of a conservatory, that was my big debate when I was going to college. Was, do I choose, at the time I was deciding between Johns Hopkins and Peabody Conservatory of Music, and then going to a 4-year liberal arts school, just doing liberal arts. And there's a part of me that felt like my soul died a little bit when I didn't decide music with the conservatory. But again, these are kind of the formative decisions and things that happen in our lives that help us become who we're supposed to become. And, you know, even though we may not know, once I say this again, we may not know why things happen and why it's so hard or so this or that, you know, there is a reason. But it was when I was in college, you know, my family, we'd had a family doctor. His name was Dr. Johnson. God bless his soul. He's passed, unfortunately. But he was the only Black doctor I knew in Iowa. And he was amazing. I mean, he'd come over to our house in the middle of the night. My brother had really bad asthma, so he would have asthma attacks. And, you know, of course, that was back in the early 80s. It's not what we have now in terms of treatments and treatment options. And Dr. Johnson would come over in the middle of the night with his doctor bag. And it's like, literally, it felt like he just like waved a stethoscope and made it all better, like a wand, you know? And I was like, he's kind of amazing. This is kind of cool. So even though I had this love for music, I was still pursuing and studying science and just sort of exploring because I just was always fascinated. And it was in college, I was like, okay, well, I've chosen not to do music professionally. I was like, I gotta get a job. My parents like, you better get a job. They're like, you know, we can't afford for you not to have a job. You know? So I was like, okay, guys, okay. But you know, going into the health sciences field seemed to make a lot of sense. So that's really how.
That's amazing. That's an amazing story. I love that. So I want to talk a little bit now about your time in Iowa. Obviously, you had a good amount of time there, and you decided you were actually Miss Iowa, and then you competed in Miss America. And, you know, that's a very interesting journey in itself. You know, talk to me about that. I mean, this is 1999. I can only imagine. I mean, you're so intelligent. You've got so many amazing attributes. You know, you're talented musically. You've got the academia, and you're beautiful, and now you want to pursue this. And as a Black American woman, I can only imagine, you know, what that journey was like. You know, it couldn't have been easy and seamless and, you know, just, you know, a walk in the park.
No, it wasn't. And it was actually, I'm not going to call it an accident, but it was not planned. You know, I don't cringe when people say the Miss Iowa stuff, but it was a hard adjustment for me to make. I didn't do my first pageant until I was 20 years old. My last pageant was a year and a half later at 21. I was a sophomore at Princeton. That's when I went to Miss America. I did not win Miss America. I wasn't even in the top 10 or top 5 or whatever. So it was a very short-lived career. I was one of these girls who was kind of, you know, like a little brainiac. I was kind of a band geek, an orchestra nerd. I always, my brother used to, well, he still makes fun of me, but growing up, I had what he called the trifecta. I had a Jerry curl, I had braces and acne. I mean, I was just, I had feet this big, like my feet were like huge. I mean, I was a mess. I was not one of these girls who was popular or, and I was African American and Iowa. Iowa was a great place to grow up, but I was never the chosen one when it came to dating. I didn't actually ever have any boyfriends and things like that. So my point to saying all of this was that journey was completely unexpected. In fact, I remember being a child looking at the pageants thinking like, wow, it's amazing and loving to watch it, but I never thought that was me. So what happened was I was at church with my parents. This was my sophomore year. So I finished pageants my junior year, like sophomore to senior year. So we were at church over Easter, and there was a woman who was in charge of like the local pageant in Iowa for Miss America. They were looking for contestants, and you have to have a talent and whatever. And I found out that Miss America is the world's largest scholarship organization for women. And I was like, what? And you have to know, Princeton, I mean, if my parents couldn't afford boarding school, they could not afford Princeton. That's before a lot of colleges and universities started providing a lot. Now I feel in my heart that there's a lot more resources. And I think schools have paid attention to the fact that, look, a lot of kids cannot afford $40,000 a year, and that's just for college. So I was working 4 jobs. I delivered newspapers at Princeton. I worked at the dining hall. I worked at the department. I had 50 million work study jobs. And when they told me that it was scholarship money, the reason why I even competed was because I was like, I need the money. I was a resident advisor at Princeton. I mean, I did everything I could to make money to pay for tuition. I was on scholarship, all this stuff, right?
Right.
So I say it's important for me to tell that backstory, because what I want women and men and anyone to understand is that, again, I may look a certain way. It's because I got hair extensions, because I learned how to do that when I was Miss Iowa. I figured out how to do my makeup. But I also learned that you can become whoever you choose to become, in a way. And in other words, don't rule out things because it doesn't seem, you just never know. I never told any of my Princeton colleagues that I was going into the pageants because I was embarrassed. I felt ashamed. Wow. I felt like it wasn't kind of a cool thing to do. I felt like people would look down on it. I was worried about people, how they would view me. I was not the prettiest girl, the skinniest girl, the most, that wasn't me. So I say all of this to say that you can have these feelings and emotions and concerns and mountains and peaks and valleys, and you can still turn out and end up exactly where you're supposed to be. Don't let those deter you. And life is just a funny thing. So that's what makes me proud of that experience, was because it was something that I never ever thought and was very close to not even giving a chance. And thank God I did, because it changed the rest of my life. In fact, it's one of the reasons why I feel comfortable going on TV, is because of the experiences I had when I was Miss Iowa. So I'm so grateful for that. And, no matter what people think of pageants, scholarship money that paid for a good amount of college. And I even got a couple of $1,000s that paid for med school. I mean, I needed it. So I'm grateful. Are you there?
Oh, here we go. Sorry, lost you there for a second.
Okay, good.
All
right.
No, that was amazing. I mean, it was such an important story to share, because obviously, there were so many challenges and so many internal struggles that you were having, but even something like that really shapes you into the person that you are today. And as you mentioned beautifully, that it gave you this added confidence to really take on your next task that I want to talk about, is your really huge media presence. I mean, it's amazing to see. A lot of physicians are, it's sort of very, traditional, black or white, you kind of go to work, you're working in the hospital, you're working in the office. Things have changed drastically in the medical field very, very recently. But I think you were one of the first people to really kind of open that door and really have that big media presence, which is not really common for physicians. And I think it's really important to hear that there were so many different things that happened in your life that sort of propelled you towards that. So I want to talk a little bit about, your media presence and, all of the work that you do. Was it, easy to get your foot in the door? Were there a lot of challenges? How was it, again, as a Black American woman entering this field of media now, because now you're a physician. First of all, that's one thing that you have to sort of sell yourself, that this is why this is important, to relate to the public. And as a Black American woman, like, are you able to get your message across easily? Do you recall an interview that was exceptionally challenging where, you had to really prove yourself to say, no, this is why I think it's important that I reach people?
No, I think those are all salient questions. And what I'll say is, as honestly as a Black woman, a woman of color in this country, I feel like I always have to prove myself. I don't know if that's your experience. Are you there? I think we have a poor connection. Let's see. Uh-oh, you're coming in just a little bit. Wait, can you see me?
Oh, there we go. Yes,
okay,
yes, I can see you perfectly. Yeah,
okay, okay, good. Okay, I'm
yep.
sorry if it's my connection. I'm not really sure, but so I'll be brief.
No, it's okay.
I just feel like as a woman of color, it's hard all the time. You know, it's hard being a doctor. It's hard trying to navigate that. Pageants, you know, I was not the typical pageant girl. By the way, I was not the first Black Miss Iowa. Believe it or not, the first Black woman to ever compete in Miss America was from Iowa in 1970, if you believe that. I mean, that's not right.
Wow.
I didn't know that they would have. I didn't know that America was progressive enough to send a Black woman to Miss America in 1970, let alone from Iowa. But anyway, yeah, I started doing TV actually my last couple of years of med school, really in residency. And that was something I had to navigate too, because with that was, I mean, I came out of residency in 2008. And back then, doctors really weren't doing a lot of TV. There were maybe two doctors that did TV.
Yeah.
And my first job was at Johns Hopkins and Sinai. I'm family medicine board certified, but I worked in internal medicine my first 2 years out of residency at it's Sinai Hospital in Baltimore. And at the time, they had a joint residency with Hopkins in internal medicine. And that program, I don't think, is no longer. But I was a faculty member there. And so I taught some Hopkins medical students. I precepted residents on our campus at Sinai, et cetera. I didn't tell anyone I did TV at the time because I was afraid of being not taken seriously. I think the thing I worried about a lot early on was if people would think that I was just some silly girl who was not a good doctor, who was, you know, running around on TV trying to showboat. So that was the biggest thing I was worried about. I didn't tell a lot of people I did TV. And social media wasn't social media. We didn't have social media then.
Yeah.
Now it's cool to be an influencer. It's cool to have followers as a doctor. It's cool to be on TV. It wasn't then. People kind of looked at you like, oh, so do you see patients? I mean, like, did you, you know? And I really, really worried about and it's not until now, I've been in practice now for about 12 years. And it's probably only in the last 4 or so years that I've been really, really comfortable in my skin. And now on my Insta, every now and then I'll post a bikini pic or I'll post a picture of me at some gala with a dress on. You know, years ago, I didn't do any of that. I kept it on lock. I kept it buttoned down. I went to work with my hair pulled back like this. I didn't even wear my hair down. I didn't wear makeup. I didn't wear lashes. Like, you know, it was very minimal for the reasons that I think women in medicine, we get this. You don't want to be looked at like, you don't want your residents or your students to not take you seriously. And I was so afraid of that. Luckily, the tide has changed. We are seeing more doctors on TV. We are seeing more doctors and people in media, which is good because the purpose is to educate. But it also allows us to be creative. And I'm really happy about that. So that's a little bit about kind of the journey that, it was tough for a lot of reasons. And it still is tough to get involved. But I'm really glad that I can finally settle in and really be who I am. Because for a long time, I really, really protected that because I was afraid that I would be negatively impacted from a career standpoint.
That's amazing. So many amazing points in that, you know, especially hits home really well with being a female in medicine. You know, we definitely do feel like we, you know, sort of have to prove ourselves and want to be taken seriously. So I can imagine all the challenges you had in that. Did you feel like you were being stereotyped at any point when you were starting your media journey? Did they want you to only do certain things, you know, cover certain stories or, you know, be a certain way? Or did you have complete control and they gave you free reins over what you wanted to do?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I'm not contracted by any station, which means I don't have a contract with CNN or Fox or Dr. Oz or whatever. So that means I can go on any station, any network, and I do. What that also means for me is that, and I've always done this from the beginning, I've always felt that, you know, doctors and healthcare professionals should be the ones talking about media, but you should never, ever, ever say anything on TV or elsewhere that you wouldn't tell your own patient. And that is, integrity is so, so important, not only as being doctors, but I've never forgotten that is my claim to fame. I'm a doctor first. So there have been TV segments where producers have asked me to talk about a certain thing like a cellulite cream or something that's total utter BS. And I say no. I decline segments left and right, sometimes more than others. I've had producers be very upset at me because I wouldn't say a certain thing. And this is not common, by the way. TV is not, it's not common that this happens, okay? But every now and then, I had a producer hang up on me on the phone. She literally hung up on me in my face because she
Wow.
was frustrated with me because I insisted on us framing the segment a different way because they were talking about a study that really wasn't a study that was published. It was a poster presentation, and I felt like that should be qualified.
Yeah.
My point being is, no matter what we're doing, whether it's being on social media, doing interviews, doing TV, whatever, especially as physicians and honestly any other profession, we have to be true to who we are. I have to be able to wake up at night, kind of like with patients. You're an infectious disease doctor, and this feeling is like, you know what it's like to have been on call, like when you were residents or whatever. You never want to leave the hospital the next morning being like, oh, I wonder what happened to that guy.
Yeah.
You take care of your business, you handle your stuff, and you do things the right way, the best you can, so that you sleep well at night, and so that at the end of the day you did the best you could. And that applies to media too. So yeah.
That's amazing. I love that. And I think that's really a message that a lot of people need to hear, especially today, because I know you are really familiar with the amount of social media platforms that physicians have, and even physicians in training, medical students, medical residents. I think a lot of times people tend to forget that, there's sort of a different, motive and motivation, and things are kind of spiraling a little bit out of control with social media and medicine. So I think it's really important for people to kind of take a step back and remember that, the basis of everything. And like you said beautifully, treat this just like you would treat your patients. You have to stay true to that at the end of the day. And I think that's beautiful. And I think that's why you resonate with so many people. And I love that. So Dr. Jen, I know you have to go, but I want everyone to have a great message from you. I want you to share with us, what message do you want for America today?
Oh my God. Well, it's just tough. This is like what been the craziest few weeks like of our lives, right? We've never seen anything like this. And I guess I would just say, I don't even think I can be eloquent with this. We just have to be hopeful. And I am hopeful. I know things are going to get better. And throughout all the tragedy we've been through in the last couple of weeks, we are seeing real change. We are seeing real improvement. And we're seeing actually us as a group of people come together, no matter what color we are and what gender we are and what gender we identify with and whatever. I feel like people are coming together. And what I'm trying to think about, even as like this morning, I saw that George Floyd's brother is testifying in front of Congress, like as sad as it is, and it's heartbreaking, there is some good happening. And if we remember that and we take that and we use the situation and we don't live through it in vain, that we say this tragedy should never happen again, and let's make things better going forward. And I know we can do that, and we are doing that. And that makes me feel good.
What a beautiful message. That is so helpful, and such a beautiful message. Beautifully said. You're a beautiful person inside and out. And I just want to thank you for everything that you're doing and all your platforms in, taking care of patients, whether it be, through media, social media, or your active duties as a physician. I want to thank you again for your time and for having this much needed conversation. And I look forward to us speaking again soon.
Absolutely. Thank you, guys.
Take care. Bye-bye.